Hello, welcome to Garden Chronicles. I'm James David, and in today's video, I'll be talking about these succulent plants that they can easily cultivate in the tropical zone. Here, basically, the climate is considered wet and humid, and more often rainy most of the time, and can be considered highly challenging for most of these plants. And these plants hate to be in wet feet. More often, these are overwatered and which result in root rot, heading the whole plant to succumb to fungal attack, losing the whole plant. In this context, what I want to show to you is that how I care and cultivate these plants here, where these are very much fall into the category of dry, desert, arid plants. Most of this collection here are grown in compact position where they are tightly tucked together as they do not receive rainwater because these are cultivated on my balcony. As I mentioned earlier that these plants, most of them hate to be in wet feet, what I have done here is that these are very much fall into this experimental kind of a factor where they are actually watered once a week. In most cases, when it's on a rainy day or wet day, I tend to span it out more towards the 10 days or even 2 weeks based on the condition of these plants. Similarly, these are the collection of alocasia. Again, what I have done is that I will occasionally mist them rather than watering them, because they are also fall into the category where they hate to be in wet feet. Here is the mop wick system experiment where I actually use this particular begonia here in this garden space, and I find that it's doing very well. You can check it out in my earlier videos concerning them. So basically what actually been grown here is very much acclimated in my garden condition. I have experienced a few factors where sometimes these particular plants do succumb to root rot, and I find that the element here is that do watch out for over fertilizing factor, because that could be the main reason why these plants can die away. Another most challenging factor about these particular plants is pest control. I had a horrible experience eliminating scale insects, mealybug, ants, and even spider mites. And it was very challenging until I find the right pesticide for them, because at times certain pesticides seems to be very strong and also damage the plant in the process of killing the insects. But after a while, what I found that the right miticide and a pesticide together with the very good fertilizer mix here, and I find that these particular plants are actually very happy. My greatest challenge is lack of space, so what I've done is that I found that in a matter of means that these particular types of succulents are not so much root bound plants where I can just easily just lay them anywhere on top of each other and they just do very well. So basically these are the types of plants that can do well in my balcony. I have found that certain types of succulents don't do so well, but so far this seems to do just fine. Over the years, what I found concerning these particular plants is that their roots don't go too deep, hence they are very much surface root plants. And what I found that they do very well in small compact potted plants, and when I actually handle them in that kind of concept, they seems to thrive. Hence most of my potting medium is basically sand mixed with cocoa peat, and I actually use a lot of coconut chips on them to give them a tight knit spot for their root growth. Another main challenge that I actually face is lack of bright sunlight area. This is not very much strongly littered, and one of the reasons is because I find that towards a certain time of the year, the sunlight doesn't really show very strong in this part of this location. So in conclusion, I would like to sum up what I want to share here. So these are the factors that I want to mention concerning balcony garden plants. If you are very busy and do not have the time to water the garden plants daily, but you have the time to water them weekly, I would recommend these type of plants to cultivate in your garden space. Also, if you have only limited garden space, and especially if you're living in a condo that you only have your balcony as your garden space, and I would recommend this particular type of plants because these plants can thrive only by bright indirect sunlight, but not necessarily exposed to open rainwater. The other factor that I might mention to you is that, of course, occasionally pest control and fertilizing on a monthly basis is actually very good enough. And checking the plants, removing dead, rotting plants, or pruning them where it is necessary. As in my case, I just love them to grow them as wild and free. I must mention to you that when you grow them in a garden space where it is actually a controlled environment, especially when it comes to a balcony garden, you are not exposed to open environment where you will face other pests coming into your garden. So this is actually a plus point. However, it can be detrimental if you accidentally have introduced a pest in your garden, especially like spider mites or mealybug. It can be very detrimental because they can infect your whole garden and it will be very difficult to control. So this is one of the plus point in your garden space. Another factor that I want to mention is that I do reset my whole garden space here once a year by taking up all the plants and repotting them, and I find that this actually gives a very good jump start for this whole plants. And normally I will do so for the ones that are not doing so well, and the ones that are doing very well, I normally don't disturb it. So basically this is the collection that you see here in my garden space. Here you can actually see most of the plants that I've actually grown, mostly succulents, mother-in-law tongues, and few others that fall into the succulent plant category. I also note that peperomia, this particular one is called Hurinia species. It's very much like a cascading type of succulent plant, which is actually a tropical plant. They don't do very well in overwatering position, but somehow I find that there are many varieties of it, and I actually start collecting them. I used to have a lot of cacti here, but somehow I find that they are very short-lived and most of them actually has died. But the ones that actually survive, and these are the ones I'm actually having in my hands. Somehow I find that the succulent types, especially the leafy type, seems to thrive so well. This is very much like a mother of thousand type of plants, and it's a little bit of this Enseveria types. I find that they do very well in small potted plants rather than planting them in a big potted area that seems to rot easily. This is the surviving string of hearts. This is a variegated species. I've just newly got them. Also this particular one, living stones, seems so far I think it's in my hands about few months, and I've actually also introduced a few of them. Indian borage is supposed to be a herb which I find it does very well in this kind of condition. Experimentally, I've actually also introduced coleus here, and also they're doing fine. As I mentioned here, there's an earlier collection of spider plant and a few others. You can actually take note. This is what I want to show to you, that they can actually do well as balcony plants. Here in this collection is basically alocaceous, and I find that they hate to be overwatered, and one of the factors here is that they can easily get root rot. And so one of the things about keeping them as control environment plants where they just get just enough water and they are extremely slow growing plants. There are types which I find that they can do in a normal garden space where they are open for normal daily watering and that kind of stuff, but basically they need to be acclimatized in the garden space. So basically I've come to the end of my video here, and this is very much general idea what can be grown in this garden space. And And thank you so much for visiting my garden. And if you have any questions, to put them in a comment below, and I'll try my best to answer and give you my insight on how I care for my garden. I would really appreciate if you can click like and subscribe my garden channel, and I would really appreciate also that you have enjoyed my journey in my gardening in a small garden space. And thank you so much for visiting, and catch you in my next video. Have a nice day. Bye.